Further down the Stax rabbit hole we go into the Stax SR-007s. So the last Stax video I did, I think, was the L300 Limiteds, which is a Lambda, which is the big tall rectangles. So we've gone rectangles to circles, back to a more traditional headphone shape. I guess people call these like the Omega series, right? The 007 and the 009 and the 009S versus the L300, 500, 700 in the Lambda series, and there were many more before that. I'm not a Stax historian. You can go deep on that stuff. Back in the normal bias days is all pro bias stuff now. Anyway, these guys, these are big boy headphones. These are not inexpensive. These have been in production for a long time. They've had several variations and generations. The Mark 1s are by many considered the variant of the 007 to own. The 007As or Mark 2s, I think A being the Japanese market version and Mark 2 being the export version. Although both of those encompass many sub-variants, the 2, the 2.5, the 2.9. I have sampled what I believe to be, it was a 007A, I believe it was a straight up Mark II. It was pretty old. And now this, which is a 2.9, is a very recent, less than 6-month-old variation. So only the bad ones. I've never heard the good one, if you believe the community. There are some mods, I guess, to get rid of the porting that changed the sound signature that made everyone upset about the Mark 1 or Mark 2. Some people like the Mark 2 better than the Mark 1. I don't know. I haven't heard of both, so I can't really compare. So I'm only going to talk about Mark 2s. This is a phenomenal headphone. Let's just start there. Put up against any open back, planar headphone or, open back dynamic headphone that's driven by a good amp. This is gonna compare against all the big boy flagship headphones. It's in that class of, balanced presentation across the spectrum and detail retrieval and all the things you'd expect from a headphone in this price class, no doubt. These things look substantial, especially in the silver colorways. This is the black. They look really substantial, but they're very light. I mean, they're super light. The ear cushion, the head, the talk words, the ear pads. Kinnerton got me saying ear cushions. It makes my brain hurt. The pads, very nice. I want to say sheepskin. Headband, very nice, good, nice stitchery, good springy. These do wear out. The pair I tried that was the 007As that I think was a Mark II that were pretty old. This was like shot. But you can, they do offer parts. That's the cool thing, is they really haven't changed the design in a million years. So they actually offer replacement parts for most of the stuff. So that's nice. If you do pick up an old pair and they are around and they do hold their value, you can swap this guy out and get that spring back in your step. What was I saying? I don't know. Anyway, attached cable, the dreaded ribbon cable. Oh, it's so unlovable. It just folds and ties up on itself and no detachableness here. At a headphone at this price class, it's like if your cable's damaged, your headphone's done, and then you got to send it somewhere to get service. And that's there's some things about electrostatics and Stax in particular that are not super great to live with. But we do. And why do we live with all this madness? Why are Stax people so crazy? Why are electrostatic people so crazy when you see them on the forums and they go on and they buy these insanely powerful, expensive amps and these ridiculously annoying to own headphones? Why? Because they sound awesome. I mean, these things are amazing. They are so fast, lightning fast. the detailed retrieval is amazing. So I feel like the Lambda series, or I mean, I haven't heard all of them. I haven't, I haven't. I'm just going to speak in generalities. The Lambda series really sort of opened my eyes to how interesting this genre of headphone is, and the space and the speaker-like presentation. It really woke me up to it. But also immediately, having listened to really good planar and dynamic headphones, I saw some faults in the system. I saw some flaws, some stuff that felt a little fake, a little exaggerated, a little mechanical, just a little bright, a little sharp, a little harsh, just some things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way immediately. I was hooked, but I was also like, I know there's better out there. And so, when you get into the big boy Stax, I shouldn't say that. I think the Lambdas are amazing, and that it's not a better or worse thing. I think it's more of a taste preference thing. But when you get into the Omegas, the 007 and the 09, my understanding, I haven't gotten to try the 009 yet, but my understanding is that is, a real just detail monster, and big sound stage, and, it kind of delivers on all the promise of electrostats. Whereas the 007, I think, is more of an all-arounder, just something that if you come from the world of dynamic and planar headphones, is going to feel a lot more familiar to you, a lot less alien than the Lambda sound, or maybe some of the other electrostatics out there. It's going to feel a lot more familiar. It just sounds like a really good headphone versus like something that immediately smacks you as an electrostat. It's a lot more intimate. It's the presentation is much closer to your head. It's a little bit less of that magical speaker 3D kind of sound, but it's smooth, and it kind of takes off some of that that sort of overly emphasized speed and precision that is the electrostat sort of sound signature, from what I've heard. The 007 can really dig into the bass and produce some really satisfying, really textured bass, which is, I think, sometimes criticism of electrostatics is that they don't have bass, which I don't think is true at all. But across the sets that I've heard, there are some gaps sometimes in the bass extension, and the 007's presentation of it it's richer in the sort of lower mids, and then when you get into the deep bass, it does eventually fall off. But I think that it's got a lot there that's really can be really satisfying and enjoyable. I'd say it's got more sort of groove. It's got more of a beat than the Lambdas, which feel a little more clinical at times, like a little less soulful. And I don't really feel like this is a soulful headphone per se, but it's much more well-rounded in that regard. It's much more musical to my ears. But it doesn't. At the same time, it doesn't really like jump out and grab you in that sort of amazing electrostatic way of saying like, listen to this. Oh my gosh, have you heard this violin solo? It's freaking amazing. Like, I don't feel like I get that as much from this. And that's okay. I think if you were going to do an all electrostatic system and you're just going to be like, you know what, I'm not going to have any traditional amps, I'm not going to have any traditional dynamic or planar headphones, I'm just going to go all in. This is a headphone you would need to have, because it provides you that all day listening comfort, that balanced presentation that is not fatiguing, that is enjoyable, that is mellow. You can kind of tune it out, you can tune it in. Compared to something like my favorite current planar, the LSHP1, hooked up to my Decor Taboo, sort of my favorite setup. I would say this is drier, it's crisper, it's tidier, it's got a little more space, a little less richness, a little less euphoric, but it's more controlled, it's more precise. So that's a love-hate thing. When I go back and forth between the two, I go, oh, yeah, great, detail, precision, okay, great. And then I go back to the LSAs and I go, yeah, that feels nice, that feels more organic, more natural, more sort of engaging, yeah. And so that's kind of that just comes down to personal taste, I think. when you sort of go back and forth between these worlds. I'd say compared to like the Lambdas or the ES Labs 1A, some of the other things I've heard, this is less exaggerated, and it's like three dimensionality. It's like wetter, it's warmer, it's got it's not as dry. It's the vocals are a little bit more recessed, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. It's more relaxing. It's just calmer and more refined overall. You can definitely sort of dial in and pick up more subtle detail, I think, in this than maybe like the Lambda sound. But it's less dramatic, it's less passionate. And if you listen to sort of more complex, heavily engineered, sort of more producery modern music, this is probably the headphone you want of these options, because I feel like it's just gonna allow you to enjoy that music and not get sort of irritated or rubbed the wrong way by it. I will say, if you've read about this headphone, everyone will say it needs power. It needs so much power. If you haven't heard it with 1 million gigawatts, you haven't heard the headphone. And I haven't heard it with 1 million gigawatts. I've heard it with some pretty good amps, but I haven't heard it with 1 million gigawatts. So I can't tell you that I have truly experienced the 007 at its peak performance. And someone will say that in the comments, I guarantee it, because this is a headphone that is legendary in its power requirement. And if you haven't heard it with, 1 million gigajoules, you haven't heard it. So I haven't heard it. But what I will tell you is that, even just changing, using the Cord Cutis as the DAC, even changing it can do, 1 volt, 2 volt, or 3 volt output. Changing it up to 3 volt was highly encouraged in terms of feeding the Energizer. And that plus cranking it up, you sort of heard it come, you could sort of hear it come to life. And I think I noted that with the L300s, like turning up the volume on Stax doesn't, turning up the level knob doesn't always mean more volume. It often just means more richness, more detail, more. It's weird. It's like I'm used to a very like linear connection between cranking up the volume on an amp and just getting louder, more of the same. And there's always a thing with speakers and headphones where you think they sound pretty good, you turn them up a little more to unlock them, and then they sound great. So there's that. But it's different with electrostatics. It's like they can sound really thin and awful and uninteresting and passive at what you think is the right listening volume, and then you turn that dial more and they just fill in, they just like flesh out, and that is very true on this headphone. You cranked it up a little more, and it just got better. And so yeah, maybe if I had the 1 million gigawatt power amp, these things would blow my mind. But on what I've heard them on, they don't blow my mind. I just think they're great. But I didn't fall in love. I've tried 2 pairs. I haven't fallen in love. Like I said, if I was going to do an all electrostatics thing, I would have a pair of these, because you need them, because electrostatics can be fatiguing, and these are just nice and balanced and beautiful and wonderful. But in terms of what I got excited about electrostatics in the first place, that like energy and that three-dimensionality, and just that they just woke you up and said, just grab you by the shoulder or the collar and the scruff and just shake you and say, listen to this. Like, these don't do that as much, and that's not a bad thing. It's just what you're into. So yeah, I think for me, these are, of the electrostatics I've heard, the closest to a planar, and therefore I've already kind of got a planar that I love, so I can only love one. Anyway, tell me I'm wrong. I am wrong. Whatever. It's fine. I like I said, I think these are great headphones. I just think that if you've already got an amazing planar setup that you love, this is not what's going to bring you into eStats. This is this is too much of what you already have. If you are going all E-stats and you're like, well, I gotta have something I can just have on the head all day, then yeah, absolutely, they're brilliant and they're great. And you could probably just have this and have no other headphones and probably be pretty darn happy, which is maybe true of a lot of headphones. But anyway, yeah, that's about it. There's a little more electrostatic stuff to come. Got a few more sets of headphones I'm going to be talking about, and some amps and stuff. So hopefully you find it interesting. I certainly am. It's a wacky ride. It's very, very fun to just hear something new and different after listening to so many headphones. So yeah, if you enjoyed this or any of the other videos on the channel, please subscribe, give it a like, hit the bell, get the ding, know when the new stuff comes out, yada, yada, yada. Thanks. Signcraft, signing out.